As from Algiers to Cape Town, the ghost of Frantz Fanon haunted the African continent. And there was the anti-colonial struggle to free Guinea-Bissau from Portuguese colonialism, which, it was hoped, would help pave the way for a new day on the continent, even as the scourge of white supremacy in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Angola, and Mozambique persisted. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were assassinated in this infamous year. Two deaths that for many demonstrated the folly of American democracy and the impossibility of achieving genuine freedom through conventional means. By this time, the civil rights movement had transitioned to black power as the dominant, or at least most vociferous, form of black struggle in the US, Canada, and the UK. Black athletes protested against racism during the Mexico Olympics. In the lead-up to the Olympics, hundreds of students were killed by the Mexican authorities during the Tlatelolco massacre. While Black Panther Party members patrolled the streets of Oakland in order to protect black civilians from police incursions, Quebec, and the city of Montreal in particular, became a hotbed of radical socialist and nationalist politics, in part inspired by Black power and African liberation struggles. As French Quebec grappled with 200 years of British and Anglophone domination, and struggled for economic, cultural, linguistic, and political self-determination, the ideas of Simone de Beauvoir, Jean-Paul Sartre, and anti-colonial theorists such as Albert Memmi, Aimé Césaire, and perhaps, most important of all, Frantz Fanon, circulated among the left in Montreal. 2. Indeed, Fanon's ideas entered North America via Quebec, where Les Damnés de la Terre, the French original of The Wretched of the Earth, found a home long before the first English translation. The emergence of black power in the United States profoundly influenced Quebec's independence movement and particularly touched members of the Front de Libération du Québec, FLQ, the militant separatist group that was responsible for a series of bomb attacks and other acts of violent protest in Quebec in the long 1960s. Two of the FLQ's leading figures sought to develop ties with black power figures in the United States, such as Stokely Carmichael. 3. And drew upon the ideas of Malcolm X, who allegedly made a brief visit to Montreal in January 1965. We know with certainty that he made an appearance in Toronto on CBC's Front Page Challenge with Pierre Berton on the same month. 4. In 1966, FLQ members Pierre Valliere and Charles Gagnon traveled to the U.S. in order to make contact with Black Power and Puerto Rican militants with the goal of forming a nationalist front against colonial oppression. 5. They distributed a declaration in the United Nations headquarters concerning incarcerated FLQ members in Montreal and Quebec's decolonization movement. 6. They were eventually arrested by American authorities in New York and jailed in the Manhattan Detention Center for disturbing the peace. 7. But it was during his detention that Valliere wrote his most celebrated work, Nègres Blancs d'Amérique, The White Niggers of America. 8. I have discussed this peculiarly Quebec conception of nègre in fear of a black nation. 9. But in response to this problematic appropriation of black identity, the Congress of Black Writers co-chair Elder Thébault retorted that while it had become fashionable for French Quebecers to refer to themselves as Canada's nègre blanc, blacks were, to use a tautology, the real nègre in Canada and in the world at large. 10. The U.S. Black Power movement was central to Valliere's thinking, and yet one could read in the FLQ theorist's book that in Quebec the French Canadians are not subject to this irrational racism that has done so much wrong to the workers, white and black, of the United States. They can take no credit for that, since in Quebec there is no black problem. 11. As I have suggested elsewhere, we might rightly ask if the high priests of the left-wing Quebec separatist movement, which owed so much to U.S. black power, did not recognize racism right under their very noses, not to mention the almost total elision of the colonial condition of Indigenous peoples. What hope was there for the rest of Canada? But to his credit, Valliere later revised his views on the existence of racial discrimination in French Canada, including the plight of Canada's First Peoples, who were colonized by both the French and the English. 12. Black Montrealers were a component part of this politically charged atmosphere. 13. And while the Congress co-chairs argued that the event could have been convened anywhere, 14. There were particular circumstances that conspired to bring it to Montreal.